It's the Fantasy Football Hustle. Here are your hosts, Brian Drake and Dwain McFarland.
The next running back we're going to talk about here as we dive into backs that you're thinking about taking on that 1-2 turn here at the back end of the first round. You're coming through now, beginning of the second round, and now in your queue is Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns. And boy, he had a nice year last season. Almost 300 attempts, nearly 1,500 yards. I believe he came into the final week of the season as the rushing leader in the NFL. Only 8 touchdowns, and I say that because there were multiple weeks, and I had him on fantasy teams and watched it live, where he was stonewalled attempt after attempt at the goal line. So that easily could have been 10 or so. But here's the real problem with Nick Chubb. And last year, everyone said, I'm not going to worry about Kareem Hunt and his 8-game suspension. That's a lifetime. I'll worry about it when he comes back. Well, guess what? When he came back, all of the passing work for Nick Chubb out the window. Those weeks like week 3 when Nick Chubb had 7 targets, see ya. Multiple weeks of 4, not happening. You're looking now at, you go from week 10 on, 1 target, 3, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2. Yikes.
Yeah.
That's my big breakdown of Nick Chubb.
No, yeah. And I think it's very, very fair. He averaged 16 points a game on the year, 20 points over the first 8 weeks without Hunt, 13 points per game with Hunt. That's a big drop off. I mean, 13 points a game, that puts you down here in this below this RB2 line. That's what you averaged those last 8 games, right? So 3 out of 16 games total, only 19% was Chubb over the 25 mark. 25% of the games without Hunt, he was able to do that. Only 13% of the games with Hunt. So same thing on 14 to 24 points. So an RB2 range, 5 out of 16 games, so 31%. In the games where he didn't have Hunt, he was better, 38%. In the games where Hunt was back, so 25%. So think about it that way. In the games once Hunt was back, 38% of those games he was worth an RB1 or RB2, right? 62% of the games he was below an RB2 once, Kareem Hunt came back. So that's the scary part. We'll talk about the scheme change, though, in a minute, and it does matter. We'll skip past this one. But as far as the snaps go, same kind of thing that we saw earlier. Look at Chubb chugging along, looking like Kenyon Drake up here, and then Kareem Hunt. Man,
that's
now you're
about
down
when
here.
my fantasy season got derailed last year, right when Kareem Hunt came back.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're seeing the snaps go down. Here's the good thing. Those inside the 5 carries all still remained with Nick Chubb. Now, again, we have a total new coaching staff. So some of this you got to really, you can't just it's not apples to apples, when you have a new coaching staff coming in. But that was a positive for him last year. 76%, of the attempts, 68% inside the 5. And I will say, the other positive thing was that in the games with Hunt playing, I'm on the wrong one. Sorry, Drake. I was going to give you Chubb's average percentage, of rushing attempts was actually 69% with Hunt back. So he still was the leading runner.
Mm-hmm.
He still was getting all the inside the 5 work, but that very important passing down work that you talked about, these routes per drop back, and the targets went away. Mm-hmm. And it turned him into Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, who are the other guy? Joe Mixon.
It ripped all the upside away.
Here's what I'll say, though. Again, I would draft Devontae Adams in round 1 at the end of round 1 if he's sitting there, and I'll turn around and take, Nick Chubb in the second instead of being worried about getting Joe Mixon. Mm-hmm. I mean, that opens that play up for you. So if we think about the offense, we think about
Stefanski's new role.
Because
you're going to talk about this on Pro Football Focus, right? For a little plug for the website.
Yeah, I'm writing an article on this, tonight or early in the morning. It's already 10:20. I'm working on it. But and we've talked about it before. We've talked about it with Jay Moyer. Our audience knows this, but if you're new to it, Stefanski is going to run more 12 and more 21. There is a lot of talk about Hunt, and I did go look in the back end data with PFF, the cool stuff I get to see now. Hunt was like 5th in the league in slot routes ran. He ran more than I thought. So there could be a chance for Hunt to get involved in the passing game via the slot. But based on the way Stefanski's scheme works, I don't expect Hunt to be like 40% of the attempts. I think it's going to be like what we're thinking, 65% or so, 60%, somewhere in there for Chubb. Maybe I don't see him getting to 70%. And then he's going to have a change of pace from Kareem Hunt. Where it's still going to be a problem, though, is if you think back to last year and you think about Minnesota, where Stefanski came from, they were just blowing people out in a lot of those games, right? Mm-hmm. So there was never a need, to have to really do anything different than what they were doing. If the Browns can't hold teams down with their defense, and if Baker Mayfield can't get rid of some turnovers, that's where it becomes problematic for Nick Chubb, because you get into these games where all of a sudden, the Browns aren't winning the game or they're down by a touchdown. You're going to see a lot more Kareem Hunt still in those weeks. So again, I don't expect Kareem Hunt to be a big challenge to Nick Chubb as far as rushing percentage. I expect Hunt to be solid and be in that 20% range, 22, 23% range of carries, which is pretty good for an RB, 2 that's not in a true RBBC. But I think it's, again, Chubb, similar to what we just talked about with Jacobs, 7 to 8% of the targets. Now, for me, I like Nick Chubb over Josh Jacobs because I like Cleveland's offense and what they've done. I like Stefanski. I like his scheme. I think there's a lot of big play potential. I think there's a potential, much more of a chance for Nick Chubb to get to 12 to 14 touchdowns and hit some big upside than there is for Josh Jacobs, in my opinion. I think this offense could be quite a bit better. So even at the 7 to 8% target and, the similar carry load and the similar work inside the 5, I like the scheme better. I like the overall talent better. They also invested in the offensive line. They traded a pick in the draft for Andy Janovich, a good fullback. Mm-hmm. So we're going to see a lot of 21, a lot of 12. And the cool thing is in the games where, Cleveland, does get out, they do form a lead, I expect them just to keep the pedal down on the running game. I think the one other thing Kareem Hunt could do, Drake, is just limit that real top end, huge, 200-yard rushing week kind of thing. Because if the Browns are up by 21 on a team, it's the fourth quarter, I could see Hunt getting the carries in the fourth quarter, right, instead of Chubb. Because it's kind of like, well, why do I want to get Chubb hurt if he's already killing it? So that's the two things I think. In the receiving game, he's going to be a challenge. And then I think in scenarios where Cleveland's in a blowout type of thing, unlike a Kenyon Drake who might keep getting the carries, I think you could very easily see Kareem Hunt come in and, hold Nick Chubb down to a 27, 28 point week whenever, he might have had a shot at like a 40.
Real quick, where would you draft Kareem Hunt in a PPR league?
I don't want Kareem Hunt until he's been going anywhere from I've seen him go as early in round 4.
Right. Rounds like 4 through 6.
Yeah. 5 and 6 is where I most typically see him go. I'm out. I'm out. And here's why. I know how this offense works. Because they run 12 and 21 so much, they're going to be in 11%. They're going to be in 11 personnel, one of the least amounts in the league, which means that if you don't think that Kareem Hunt's going to get 30 or 40% of the carries, there's not going to be a lot of situations for him to be a slot receiver. So you already have a team that's going to try to play defense and wants to run the ball more than it wants to pass. So they want to shrink the pie. They're not going to use 11 very much. So that's going to shrink the number of times you would even have a chance to be in the slot, playing slot. So when I think about that, it just makes me, I think Hunt is much more of a handcuff than what people think. I don't think he's going to give you a lot I don't think Kareem Hunt in a vacuum is going to give people a lot of, I feel great about starting him kind of weeks. Now, that doesn't mean you never would take him in round 6. If your roster construction is a certain way and you're really you just want Hunt for the upside, you think he's better than a 0, right? For like some handcuffs, and you still want the upside it gives you with Chubb, great. But I would much, much, much rather be drafting wide receivers in that round, or even saving a pick, in round 6 or 7, because I do feel like there's a tier drop off at quarterback this year where you could have a shot at a guy like Dak Prescott or Kyler Murray if they fall.